Welcome to this Anfield Wrap show. My name is Neil Atkinson, and I'll be hosting this show in a minute, almost certainly, if you're listening stroke watching this on YouTube. The Anfield Wrap free show is one of the shows that we do on a weekly basis through the Anfield Wrap. We've also got 11, 12, sometimes even 13 of them that we do as subscriber shows. It's only £5 a month. If you like this sort of thing and you feel as though you've got the time or the inclination to hear much more jokes, more fun, more tactical analysis, more looks into Liverpool's history, to the background and the culture of Liverpool Football Club, then please click to subscribe at theanfieldwrap.com. £5 a month, as I say, and there's no obligation beyond that first £5 if you just want to have a little listen. We get some great interviews sometimes as well. But before we go any further, before you even go through that process, have a listen to this here. This is us talking about the latest match. It's the Anfield Wrap. Neil Atkinson, Mike Nevin, Gareth Roberts and John Gibbons with you after Liverpool have gone to Bournemouth and been beaten by four of their goals to three of our goals. Coming up, we're going to talk through all the usual aspects that have come out from the game. First and foremost, we'll talk about the feelings. John Gibbons, it felt... It hurt. It was a gutting result. If we'd have just gone there, not turned up, not played well, got beat 1-0, it probably wouldn't hurt as much as this game, given the way it played out.
Yeah, I was completely gutted after the game. It took me ages to kind of get myself around, really, to kind of having a laugh and enjoy my friends' company again, because I just couldn't believe what I'd seen. I couldn't believe we'd thrown it away, and it was just, you start thinking about all the insecurities. But I found Mike Nevin wandering the streets before looking for the officers, so we had a bit of a chat on the way up, and we were talking about all your insecurities about the team coming back, your worries about the goalkeeper not being up to it, your worries about the defence, and your worries about the kind of the mental toughness of the team, really, and their ability to play well when it's not 100 miles an hour, and the things that kind of gone away or you've forgotten about, or in some cases you thought you'd overcome it, and then they all kind of came flooding back to me on Sunday night in a very unwelcome manner.
Yeah, it's there. Well, go to Mike next then, as he's having off mic chats with Gibbo. It's what John said there, but it's also just simply the way in which the football match plays out. Not even just the way in which Liverpool play, when they play well, when they play badly, but just simply the run of the goals, 2-0 and 3-1 on top at both stages of the game, and then to emerge not with 1 point, which would have felt bad enough, it would have felt like a defeat. It almost feels like two defeats is what I'm driving at. I feel like we've been beaten twice in one day.
Yeah, probably beaten twice in 10 minutes, because, I think I was more gutted at their third than I was at the fourth. Generally, completely gutted, and just sort of referencing Gibbo there and how long it took him to get over it, and I'm not over it now. Won't be till next Sunday, to be perfectly honest. But in terms of acute feeling of disappointment, probably not since we lost to Chelsea in the key game in 2014 have I felt that disappointed and that upset about it. But I think the thing for me, and Gibbo's right to say, it sort of opened up all the old wounds, all the insecurities that we've had at the back of our minds about this team, that largely this season we've been able to put to bed, but they all came flooding back in the space of about 20 minutes. But the worst of it for me was that I was in my own sort of text group, I was texting people at 2-0 saying we're really sloppy here, we've been poor for 20 minutes. And even at the start of the second half, before they scored again, I thought we were slow out the blocks coming out second half. And I think there was a sustained period before Bournemouth have even scored where Liverpool they're just not at the races.
Well, there's something on this. I felt we really came out cold second half, Gareth. And people throw it, and I've referenced it in my review, people throw around words like complacency. And I just sort of think we came out cold in that we just weren't there. We weren't right. But for whatever reason, whether it's a couple of them are carrying injuries, I just thought we came out cold second half. And over the weekend, I think United and Chelsea both come out cold second half. I've seen all three of those games, us and those two. And Chelsea come out cold second half, but they get spurred into life. They get one goal and then they go from there. United end up hanging on against Everton when they're obviously vastly superior to them. And we did the same thing and we end up losing the game. And my point about this is, you come out cold, but it's then what you do next and how you kick on. And I thought when we got 3-1, I thought, right, okay, I was actually thinking, we've got away with one a bit here, but we go from here, and it transpired we didn't get away with one.
I actually thought, it wasn't sort of the stereotypical game of two halves, if you like, because I actually thought they started knocking off before half time. Yeah. Because I was really, I don't know why, just when you just get a certain thread of thought in your mind, and this happened to me. When I was watching the first half, it was in my head about Liverpool pressing, about the gegen pressing and all that sort of thing. And so I started watching that as a thing, as I'm watching the match, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so I was watching it and I was thinking, they're on it here. They're good. They started well, and Bournemouth couldn't get out. Bournemouth couldn't play because there was players swarming over them like you've seen so many times. But by the end of the half, that wasn't happening. Yeah. They were starting to get space. They were starting to get time on the ball. And I was thinking, well, why is that happening? We shouldn't be getting complacent just because we're 2-0 up. And I think collectively they seem to think, oh, well, that's job done here. And it was weird as well, because I've seen people say, sort of how well we played that first half. I wasn't as convinced, really. I thought we controlled it, but I wouldn't particularly say we played well. So I thought systematically we were working as a team, like I say, with the pressing. But in terms of individuals, in terms of moments of brilliance, I wasn't seeing that much of it. And I think, both of the goals as well that we score, I don't think it's great defending by Bournemouth on either of them. I mean, Origi's a brilliant finish from that angle, but it's down to the fact that the keeper's done a mad one. And the other one, the defender's got to be looking at himself that he doesn't even get a challenge in on Mane and he just toe pokes that in. So, yeah, I didn't think we'd played that well, and then it got worse second half, and then they really did knock off. And as you have all said, it is really gutting. Not what hasn't been mentioned is it's even more gutting in the context of how the league's gone and how this weekend had gone. It really felt sort of must win, if you like, as every game does when you get yourself up there. And because of what we'd seen over the weekend and a couple of big hidings handing out, and Arsenal now looking like the back on it, even Tottenham getting a win and getting closer to us, I just thought we've got to win this one. And then to lose it in the manner we did, well, was criminal. And I agree with you. I wrote something on our Facebook as well that it felt like we lost the game more than a couple of times, if you know what I mean. Because 2-0 we've won it, then we throw it away by handing them a penalty. 3-1 we've won it, and then we throw it away again. And it's just like it's really hard to take that, because you just think as a group, those boys on the pitch and the manager should be able to win from those positions.
I think they looked. I mean, I'm inclined to agree with Gareth in the sense that I thought we were playing all right first half, and we got 2 good goals. And they are good goals despite the defensive.
And Origi misses from 4 yards.
Yeah, before that as well. I mean, we are on top. We are dominant, but I agree with Gareth. I said this previously. I think it was the drop off at 2-0 before half time that set the tone, I think, for us coming out.
Why do you think that drop off happens?
I do think it's complacency, and I don't think it's complacency in its sort of purest sense. But watching it at home like you did on Sunday, when the second goal goes in, you actually think, game. It's not game over, but you feel that there's a cushion there. I can sit back and I can relax and begin to enjoy watching some of the football that I was expecting us to move into. And of course, but by half time, as I say, I was quite annoyed really that we hadn't taken the opportunity to really press on. And I think it's, as I say, it's not complacency in one sense, but it is in another, because naturally, if you've got a slight drop off because you're 2-0 up, you should really be playing the game as though you're 1-0 up or at 0-0 for as long as you can until it well and truly is gone for the opposition. And I just think we offered them the opportunity to slightly get a foothold in the game, put some passes together, play without pressure on the ball as much as we would normally do. And that they just gleaned some confidence stage by stage through that first half, early part of the second.
What I think is dead interesting, and maybe I'm wrong, is it's tactical. This is going to sound like it's a criticism of a player, and it's not really. I think the right centre forward for us at 2-0 is Firmino, and it's not Origi. I think Origi's done really well. He should have a goal, but it's good movement from him. He gets his goal, it's a really good finish. But at that point, Mike, without Lallana in midfield as well, it felt a little bit like, when you're talking about there's less pressure on the ball, there's less pressing. Well, Firmino does a lot more of that than Origi does. Just naturally, again, this goes back to the idea that people say, Sturridge, use Sturridge as an example rather than Origi, so it doesn't sound like I'm getting on a young lad's back. My point about this is people say, Firmino works well harder than Sturridge. He does, but Ian Rush worked well harder than Fernando Torres.
Yeah.
This isn't, it's simply a characteristic of the footballer as much as it's anything else. And I was watching that sort of the last 15 minutes there, and the idea of, and you can't expect necessarily, for instance, Henderson to do it. You were going, well, who's leading the press here, boys? Who's the one who's going, right? We're just going to close. We're going to get back to where we were. We've had 5 minutes, which is fine going off it. But then when it got to, say, 33, 34, there was no one going, right, I'm going to get us back on the front foot here, boys. And that's what I was watching. Again, I don't think they've gone, this is in the bag, this is too easy. I just think that there's no one there who naturally goes, right, I'm going first ball, come on boys, you're all coming with me. I thought that was missing.
I think there's something in a lot of what you say there. I mean, I think Firmino, because Origi's playing, Firmino is displaced a little bit from his best position, which is more central, and therefore, that's a place where he would be involved in the pressing. I think Origi as well. I'm not convinced that he's the arch presser anyway. I mean, he's not that type of player to me.
No, he's just not that player.
He's gangly. He makes runs, but they tend to be sort of runs into the channels, or like the one where that he scores from, which is it's out wide on the right. And I think also, I mean, you've got to reference the fact that as a direct replacement in yesterday's game, he come in for Coutinho. Now, I think Coutinho's sort of defensive presence is also something that we miss at times, because he's so creative. But it's not just the work that he gets through defensively, but the position that he occupies on the pitch. It's quite narrow, quite central. And I just thought, as a theme yesterday, as the game was beginning to be lost, you saw that quite familiar and quite disturbing pattern where they were just running through us, right through the middle of our midfield, and were just really slow on the turn. And I think the lack of pace really in the lineup was exposed for the first time really this season, in a manner that Rodgers' teams began to get criticism for, where Gerrard was on his last legs and was getting turned. And I think, if you look at Henderson, Wijnaldum and Shan individually, none of them have got great pace. They've all got real good qualities and they're all good players. And at times yesterday, I thought they all had good games for a while, but none of them have got pace. Now, if you get a team running at you through the middle, but as I say, just going back to the first point, it starts at the front, and it's about the press from the front. But
where you lose the ball. I mean, for the second goal, Origi loses the ball. There's 5 ahead of him.
The thing about Origi, I mean, let's face it, the lad's got 2 really good goals in his last 2 games, but he's an untidy footballer. And another word that I was using throughout the first half and the early part of the second half is how sloppy we were. And Origi's sloppy. He's sloppy defensively for the 3rd goal, I think, where he makes a ridiculous half-arse challenge. He turns his back on things, but equally there's the one where he gives it away, which is I can't remember which goal it was now, but he gave it away really readily. And I just think, I mean, this isn't intended to be a criticism of him per se, but he's not for me the type of player that particularly suits the way that we're set up. I think he's far better in a 4-4-2.
Okay then, we'll do the opening question before we get back to it all, and it is this from Lewis Holden. What's the best thing you've ever drawn, John?
Drawn?
Yeah, what's the best thing you've ever drawn?
I wasn't expecting that.
No, mine is when I did art. I was going through sort of when you do art when you're young, and I wasn't very good, but I drew a really good tube of toothpaste once.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like absolutely nailed it. Honestly, you asked me to draw a tube of toothpaste, Mike, you'd get a tube of toothpaste.
I used to do drawings for Laura when we first started going out. I just remember this now.
You love romantic.
I know. Well, I've packed it in.
It's one of the many things that goes when the initial fire of the relationship, John.
Stop drawing pictures for her. It's finished. We're finished.
Yeah. So I did.
Just the mundanity of rebuilding a house.
Yeah, I'm just at the tip all the time now. So we used to do little drawings for her and little daft ones, and then she used to put them on the fridge where she lived with her mum and dad, and then mum used to go mad. All these stupid pictures. So I do like just silly ones. Like I had one. There was a polar bear and I can't remember what the other animal was, but one that lives nowhere near a polar bear, and they're looking at each other, and one of them says to the other, "Oh, one of us is lost." And it was just like silly things like that, and it makes her laugh. She likes animals. So we polar bear was pretty good, I think.
Okay. Good. Mike Nevin, best thing you've ever drawn?
2 things just immediately came to mind. I wasn't a great artist, but I enjoyed drawing with pencils. And that's obviously my teens, early teens, I must add. I once drew a really passable caricature of Kenny Dalglish.
Okay.
The young Kenny Dalglish. Yeah, it was really good. I wish I still had it, but I haven't. And then the other thing I did as well was, I think it was for an art homework, was I actually drew 2 basketball players going for the tip-off. So they're jousting, they've got their hands up, they're going for that touch of the ball that wins possession for their team. And then I actually painted it as well.
For a man who's saying he's not much of an artist, Michael,
yeah,
this
sounds intense.
This sounds like
probably
serious
better,
work.
Probably better than I give myself credit for. But,
yeah. Don't talk yourself down.
And I still regularly draw cats as well on cards and stuff. When we're sending cards, we always send it from the 4 of us plus the cat. And I normally just do like a sort of a very small second long sort of image of a cat.
Will you do the office a cat for Christmas?
Yeah, it won't take me long.
Good.
I might even do it during the rest of the show when Gareth starts.
No, I've never been a great drawer either. I sort of swerved art at school because it wasn't happening for me really. But what I have always done is I've always loved comics. In fact, I still buy the Viz every now and again now, for partly because it appeals to my base humour and also because it's cartoons. And so I think it's easier to draw cartoon figures that are passable, if you like. And so what I used to do was always draw, and what I liked that I did was basically draw footy matches, but draw it like a comic, if you know what I mean. And so I got quite good at doing like the goal with all the supporters behind it. And then what you always do is the keeper arching his back, tipping it round the corner, but where you can only see like his open mouth and the top of his nose. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he's arched back, tipping it over the top of the bar. Or
that
like
sounds quite skillful. That
So
you're hiding parts of people's faces to get perspective and stuff. That's really good.
So I've done them, and I was quite sort of proud of a couple of them that I did. I used to read like Buster, Wizard and Chips, Dandy, Bean. I used to get loads and loads of comics.
Wizard and Chips, much underrated.
Yeah, it was very good, Wizard and Chips. So yeah, I used to sort of mimic the styles in those comics as much as I could.
Okay, 40 more minutes of football.
I've never heard of Wizard and Chips. It feels like it's something I need to
have a little look into it. Have a look into it. 40 more minutes of football, but also I meant to say at the start of the show we're going to be speaking to Neil Wilby about the Bettison book that's come out. He's written a definitive blog, absolutely slaughtering it, frankly. And I don't want to sort of clue for what happens next, but we're going to have a good chat with him later on, me and Gareth, and that's going to be coming at the end of the show as well. But let's almost do it back to front. In fact, let's not necessarily do it till the end of the game first. Let's start. How good's that lad Fraser? Is he messing? Where on earth did they pull him up from? I could not believe.
He's been kicking around for years, hasn't he? They paid a few $100,000 for him, and I think he's been kicking around the club for quite a while without ever making
best 50 minutes anyone's had against us.
They gave him man of the match.
Rightly so.
The sponsors gave him man of the match, over the Tannoy. I mean, I guess
I don't even know where he was playing. I didn't even know what his first name is. It was just this lad terrorising us, and I was thinking, will someone do something about this?
It seemed like they threw him on almost, didn't they? And it was just go and make something happen.
Yeah.
We've lost this, if you like, and he had an absolute freedom, I think, to do what he wanted, which helps him. Do you know what I mean? He's not coming on with any pressure on him.
This is my thing here on this, and I'll go to Mike on this. My worry about this to a certain extent is Eddie Howe basically makes 3 subs, and I think Ibe is the idea that he just wants to keep the ball more and have an outlet. I think it's actually a defensive change, rather. It's like we need to have someone we can just go feet who'll hold it and run a bit, but even run backwards at times. But then I think the tactic from Eddie Howe is almost make this mental. Make this mental and they won't be able to cope. Make it bananas, make it end-to-end, make it a game of tennis. Just absolutely, just disrupt everything. Don't do anything conventionally. They barely passed the ball, Bournemouth, last 10 minutes. They're just blamming it into the, you know what I mean? I think the whole, and it's a perfectly valid tactic. My worry is suddenly, do Liverpool look susceptible to madness, is almost my point. We couldn't tame the game at all.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly added a different dimension to things. I was forewarned because my daughter plays a lot of FIFA and she knows stuff about players from their FIFA profiles. And the serious point that they're relatively accurate. And she said he's good, this fella. I mean, I'd never really I didn't even know who he was when he comes on, but he basically did everything that I was warned about. And yeah, but the game did go mad. By comparison with the first half, where it was relatively sanitised, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was two sides. One was better, one was acquiescent to reality.
And it was a typical 1:30 game where the home crowd, I mean, it was utterly silent coming across on the TV. There was no atmosphere whatsoever.
It's a weird. Sorry, Mike. It's just generally weird down at Bournemouth. Like they all support other teams. As well.
Chelsea flags everywhere.
Yeah. So I went to the pub after the game and it was home fans only. But you know, I needed a drink and thought, so what are they going to do? So me and Josh went in and I was just chatting to people about the game because it was that mad, and I was trying to get my head around it. And this fella goes, "Oh, it's a bit of a mad one for me because I support Bournemouth and Liverpool." And I'm like, right, okay, that's a bit weird. And then his mate goes, "Oh, you're like me, I support Bournemouth and Chelsea." And I'm like, this is just dead odd. And he's like, "Oh, in Bournemouth you just support someone else as well." And it's all dead odd. So we're thinking like, they go and they're just sort of not that bothered. The whole football club feels like it's just something to do. Do you know what I mean? Like for all of them, for the players, for everyone, it just feels like, you know, it's like, and Saturday afternoons are a bit boring, aren't we? Should we start a football team? And we'll all go to that. And it just sort of seems to be like a pastime. Like, I don't know, like, on Sundays we go to the supermarket. Saturday, we'll see if Bournemouth are playing, we'll go down there. And so they're all just sat there sort of not bothered. I was when we were 2-0 up, I was saying to, like, this is like the least bothered football team collectively I've ever seen. Like, you know, and then obviously they got going towards the end and enjoyed themselves. But it's all very odd. Bournemouth.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, I mean, if that is the case, and as you know, fans in the ground, I mean, maybe if you're not as bothered, it's easier to sort of get into it.
They weren't getting on the backs.
No, exactly. You know, it hasn't completely gone.
Yeah.
You know, whereas, you know, if that happens at Goodison and Everton go 2-0 down, you know, you sense that they implode and it's 4 by half time, if you know what I mean, because the angst and the anger is so acute. It was maybe there, it wasn't, but I can't remember what my original point was about the madness of the game. But it did go mad. But we were our own worst enemy in making it mad, because most of the goals come from Liverpool errors, and the thing that sort of shocked me, I said this to John before, was that they ended up having 8 shots on target in the game. Now, for the most part, and until it went mad, they didn't really look a threat, and they weren't. It was only
Cardiff had nothing to do first. That
no. I mean, I remember saying to my dad after about 40 minutes, he hasn't touched it yet. Literally hadn't touched the ball. Now, to progress from there,
there's the one, isn't he? There's the one, a threaded pass, and he makes the save at the near post. I think it goes off Lovren and then goes out for a corner.
He spilled that actually. Yeah, he should have caught that. And yeah, but that was about the only thing he had to do in the first half. But then very quickly, or within 20 minutes of the second half, it is a mad game, and I think Howe has to be given some credit for that. I mean, to be fair to Klopp, you know, he was generous to Howe and Bournemouth afterwards, but I thought he sort of had to be. But what worries me about Klopp, and I have said this before, is this reluctance, this style about substitutions. What worried me a little bit yesterday is I thought we looked tired, and whether it's complacency, whether it's an inherent lack of pace, we looked slow and a yard off the pace at times, and I just wonder about the science really involved in here, and playing lads for 90 minutes when, you know, injuries are beginning to take the toll again. And I don't know, you can't just link injury. You know, Coutinho's one's a one-off, it's a collision, isn't it? So I'm not saying that, you know, there's an issue necessarily there, but I do think there's a tiredness issue. And given that we're not playing the midweek games, the last few weeks we've just not been quite at our best. I thought the same at Southampton first half as well, until we got ahead of steam up. Every now and then you just think we're just half a yard off, passes are slightly astray, people aren't getting quite on the ball and trapping it. We weren't fantastic. And I think over the last month we haven't quite been at our best. Since the Watford game, we haven't been quite at our best, and I do think we look a little bit tired, and I don't understand why. I mean, I think the Mane change is enforced anyway, but I think, and I know that the personnel is young on the bench, but fresh legs in this game, especially when a game is going crackers around, even to break things up with a brief interlude where a player comes on, I think you've got to utilise that. And I know it's not his style, and Rafa used to get caned for having his own style about substitution by numbers, but you know, if you're pragmatically dogmatically sticking to a policy, maybe you need to think about whether you're doing it right.
I wondered about that as well, to be honest, because it felt to me that, you know, when Liverpool were on top, okay, to get 2 goals, but I mean, by the time when Bournemouth are staging their comeback, it's so obviously a comeback. Do you know what I mean? Like everyone, like John says, everyone's suddenly up in the ground.
There's 2 minutes between 3-2 and 3-3.
Yeah. So what I mean is, though, it keeps going. It doesn't change. The pattern of play is Liverpool don't look great here. Okay, there's a couple of chances, isn't he? Divock swivels and puts one over the bar. Lallana has a shot. But there was never momentum back the other way. It felt they had momentum in the game, and I wondered whether Liverpool should have been thinking about how do we just manage this game now a bit. And there was no real change from the bench to try and do that. Maybe an extra man in midfield, for instance. Or
I was going to say, I actually said to my dad, I'd get Origi off. He looks goose there, and I'd bring on a Ajaria and just put an extra body in the centre, because that was where we were getting exposed, and it was really obvious. I think sometimes when you're watching it on the TV as well, it's even more obvious than when you're at the game. And it was just time after time, run after run through the middle, players on the half.
Would you have done that before 3-2? Would you have done that 3-1?
I can't remember.
That's what I'm asking, because it goes.
It was at a point where we were winning the game.
It must be. I mean, between 3-2 and 3-3, there is 2 minutes.
I think it was a 3. I think it was a 3-1, to be honest.
So a 3-1,
or it might have been a 2-1. I think it was at 2-1. I said that. And then, of course, Chan gets the goal. And you sort of look a bit daft then, don't you? You think, oh, you know, what are we worrying about? And it's a cracking goal. But as I say, I just felt that there were various points in that second half. you're very unlikely to make a change first half, but second half for a period of half an hour, ample opportunity to just drop in a change.
To put the opposite point, and I'm not saying I disagree with you, but to slightly play devil's avocado, there is something here where if you're the manager, it's not dissimilar to what I thought was going on against Southampton, which is that we were just doing well enough. That it's not, and then you're right to say that Chan makes it 3-1. So Chan makes it 3-1, and then you are like, oh, well, you know what I mean? And then suddenly it's 3-2, and then suddenly it's 3-3. And then if he is thinking, I need to shore it up, but now what he might be thinking is, well, I don't want to take Origi off, he might score me a goal.
Yeah, agreed.
And all of that becomes, it's not, there wasn't sort of like a long, and there, he has got in inverted commas form, not to criticise him over, he's getting a lot right, but, he's of not making changes. But in general, it's not like the goals aren't all 10 minutes apart.
No.
Is my point.
You're right to point out the sort of the relatively short time between the second and the third goals. But I just, as I said before, I think a bit sooner. And regardless of the fact that Origi nearly makes it 3-3, I mean, you could have argued the case of a defensive change
at 3-1
pull him off because he looked tired and he wasn't in the game. And
put Firmino through the middle. Et cetera,
do that, or be brave with Woodburn. Yeah. I mean, Woodburn. I'm all for the idea of him being on the bench. It's a fantastic experience for him and Trent and Jaria. But I think it sort of defeats the point if you don't think they're ready to come on. If they're not ready to come on, the experience is fine and dandy. But the point is, your subs are there to be used to win games, not to sit on the bench.
I'd have bought Woodburn on a free-all. I'm actually a bit surprised he didn't, just because of the energy it would have brought. I think, if Gareth's talking about how the game, they felt like the game was going and things like that, and I think you can change that mentally with a sub as much as what the kind of sub does, really. I think if you throw Woodburn on and move maybe for the midfield and move Lallana back, I think you've got Lallana's energy in midfield there, so you've got added energy there because he hasn't been on the pitch for long and because he runs a lot anyway. You've got Woodburn running around like a maniac up top because it's a big moment for him and that's just how he plays anyway. And I think that would have just given the opposition more to worry about. I think suddenly Bournemouth thinking, oh bloody hell, I don't know anything about this kid. I heard he scored in the week. Does anyone know where he plays? Do you know what I mean? And starting to worry about that and think about what he want to do. He'd have played with no pressure whatsoever, and I thought that there's obviously pressure on some of those players because they're worried. But yeah, we were 3-1 up and now we're 3-all, and we might be losing this game. And you could tell the players were sort of thinking like that. Whereas you throw a kid on, he's not that bothered. He just thinks, I'm going to score here. This is great. And so I think it just would have changed the energy of our team and would have changed the atmosphere in the ground. And we might not have scored because you don't know. But anyone he would have had about 5 minutes or something. But
why do you think he doesn't?
I think he's being careful with him, and I think he thinks the other players are better than him. I think there's a bit of that. I think it's. I think he's maybe looking at it.
It's perfectly reasonable to think that other players are better than Woodburn at this stage because he's literally a kid. Yeah. But he isn't necessarily better. They're not necessarily better for 10 minutes when they're knackered. Yeah. And he's fresh and he's got no, as Gibbo says there, no fear. What's the worst thing that can happen here? I'm going to play 10 minutes and not score.
He might have had the effect Fraser did for them, if you like, in that like, a bit of an unknown quantity, a bit of an angle on, like you say, well, what's this kid about?
One of the annoying things for us as fans and for Klopp, because he said so publicly, is the narrative that's still going around that Liverpool can't defend. And this was probably never more apparent than this week. I mean, even on Football Focus on Saturday, I'm probably the only person who still watches Football Focus. But Trevor Sinclair was saying Liverpool just can't defend. And it's dead annoying because up until, we've had a run of solidity. We haven't conceded many goals over quite a sustained period. We haven't conceded chances critically because we've been defending well as a team. But the narrative is you can get at Liverpool, and that was very much to the fore yesterday. Bournemouth get one and think these are shaky at the back, these. And I think equally there was a narrative around Woodburn all week. Liverpool have found this new star, the new Fowler, the new Owen. Why not play on their minds a little bit with that? Because, as I say, I mean, I'd just love to see him get the chance to just get us a winner, and that that gets us a winner. It propels him even further forward, and I'm not worried about. I don't need to be concerned about Woodburn. He's a great talent. I'm not worried. Keeping him under wraps. I think we obsess a bit over this. What's the point?
On the defending, Gareth, there's Mike's right to reference it there. There've been 3 or 4 clean sheets. I think we're in a strange situation where we're either defending very well or we're not, and it's almost that straightforward. That's that there's not there was no one. I mean, it has happened a bit recently, but no one really dug each other out. We're either defending really well as a team in terms of shape, in terms of everyone knows what the job is, in terms of everything's going really, really well, or we're not. Now we're missing Matip, but I don't think it helps that Bournemouth go 4-4-2 and bring a lad on who plays on Lucas who's literally bigger than him, like significantly bigger than him. Not just, oh, he's a bit taller, it's going to be a bit of a scrap for you. It suddenly became, they're just going to go with him. He's just playing on you. You're 5'9", he looks like he's 6'2" and he's wide. That's what they're going to do. I don't think that helps, but I don't think it's just the idea of, well, Matip wasn't there, and that I think that if you do sort of trace the pattern, it is this idea that Liverpool are either, as I say, they're either pretty solid or suddenly they're not, and it's a lot of it's because the way we defend is so much reliant on shape and everybody playing well. Because I think when you look at that second half, Origi's nowhere, and that again he's playing up front, but he's nowhere. Chan and Wijnaldum, when Origi loses the ball, for instance, they're ahead of him. They've separated. The shape's much wider. Milner doesn't look like he has a great second half in terms of shape, and you're just left with sort of the two centre halves and Henderson in the middle of the pitch, and everyone else is just all a bit running round. Do you see what I mean?
It just seemed to me though as well that there was just so much panic in what they were doing. There were so many individual errors that were leading to goals and chances for Bournemouth, and it was, you know, like Lovren's making mistakes there. You know, Lucas looked panicky. I think Henderson, once he gets booked as well, wasn't Henderson from then on in. It looked like he was worried that he might go and didn't play the same game. And then obviously the goalkeeper as well. I mean, the goalkeeper doesn't look great on what I think is the second goal, and then he's definitely not great on the last one. And you know, this narrative that Mike talks about that goes about, I wonder how much it feeds into everything, both the opposition in terms of their thinking, well, Liverpool can be got out of here, their heads have gone, but also what Liverpool are doing themselves. I mean, all of a sudden, maybe it's in their heads. You know, Lovren and Lucas isn't a partnership that's played together much. So Lovren's looked much, much better when he's been with Matip. He looked back to that panicky fella that we remember from Liverpool games past yesterday.
I think it goes both ways, that as well. Lucas has looked a lot better with Matip than he has with Lovren.
But I mean, I just thought, it looked to me that Lovren's head completely gone. I mean, even right at the end there, when he absolutely balloons that cross, that's a man panicking that. You know what I mean? He's able to put a cross in. He's a good footballer. He's able to put a cross in that situation, and the one he puts in is awful. It's a pub team cross, and it's like I just thought there was so much of that. You know, Milner as well. Milner's normally quite a cool head. Looked like his head had gone as well, and you know, I think that was a big reason why Bournemouth won in the end. Just across the board, heads had gone. There was panic was set in, and they couldn't find a way amongst them to calm each other, to find a way where they were solid again, where they could see out the minutes. There was just no thought of that. I was watching it thinking, it's coming, you know what I mean? But we don't look good yet. It's coming. And then when it went in, it was, fuck's sake, Liverpool. But it wasn't a surprise, do you know what I mean?
Okay. The goalkeeper wasn't great, John.
I don't think he is great. I think that's the problem, really. He's had a few games where people have said, oh, he looks better. He hasn't had much to do. Basically, you know, he's you know, there's this stat going around, isn't it, that we conceded the least amount of shots in Europe or something. I think he's, and you know, you can say that he gets credit as part of that, as part of being a bit of solid unit, and maybe he's making the defence happier and stuff. I've seen that knocking about as well. I'm not sure. I think it's mainly Matip myself, but I think when he was shaky at the start of the season, I had a little moan about him, and people were saying, oh, he hasn't cost us anything yet. Well, now he has. He's cost us points. And I can't think of a game where he's won us any. And I think you want your goalie to get you out of trouble. You know, there's other stuff going on ahead of him. You know, people saying, well, you know, obviously Lovren isn't great and things like that. But if there's the defensive error or something, or there's a time where you're looking a bit shaky or you're having a bad 10, that's when you want something from your goalkeeper, isn't it? It's all well and good, you know, looking great at home.
If he saves it at 3-1, if it doesn't go 3-2, he'll probably go on and win the game.
Yeah, and he's got to save that. I think think most keepers tip that round the post, and you say it's a good save when he does. It's a good save that, but you just kind of expecting him to save it, and then he just doesn't. And I don't know. He
gets across to it, and it all goes under his arms.
Yeah,
it's not in the corner.
Yeah,
I think it's the third one. He's got no chance with. It's right in the corner. But
is that Cook? That's a great goal.
It's a great finish, incredible. Yeah. But the second goal, you know, and it's a well-struck shot, to be fair, there's a bit of pace on it. But if you're getting across and you're getting your hands to it, basically, you've got to keep it out.
Yeah.
He did another mad one, though, didn't he? He done one that's like basically straight at him. And he done this weird punch.
Well, to be fair, I thought that was a good save. I think that was a good reaction save.
And he nearly punched it in.
Do you reckon? Well, I mean, I'm just trying to be balanced, really, in my approach.
He does make one good save from a while.
I mean, I'm like you. I just don't fancy him. I don't like the way. I mean, it sounds ridiculous. I don't like the way he walks. In a footballing sense, you know. The funny thing about him is, you know, he's obviously imposing looking. He's a good-looking lad, but he doesn't look calm to me. He's got all of the sort of the calmness you'd think, but when he starts running around the box and gathering the ball, and there's this, obviously he wants to get the game moving again. I don't know. There's just something about his movement that doesn't make me think he looks like a natural goalkeeper at all. And I haven't fancied him. From the moment that the game against Swansea, where he was sort of stuck on his line 1 minute, then coming half a yard, then going back. I just thought, and people were saying he needs to get used to the English game. And what I was saying was, the flight of the ball is no different in Germany. It's not like a rectangular ball. It's a football that has, you know, arcs and dips on it, all over the world. It makes no odds there. Now, if you haven't got a natural ability to judge the flight of a ball, and we're not necessarily saying that here, because these are just two sort of, I suppose, fairly routine goalkeeping errors. But that's worried me previously. That's why I've not fancied him. And now he's thrown into the mix, not being able to gather the ball and save shots. Now, it doesn't need to be a conversation about Mignolet this, but people would send, before anyone had seen Karius play, more or less, people were saying he's the antithesis to Mignolet. He's totally different. He's good with his feet. He can kick, but he makes saves as well. Well, I haven't really seen any of that. To me, he made a couple of good stops at Palace, which were important. I thought he made a couple of good stops yesterday, to be fair. He made a couple against Watford when we came under pressure for about 5 or 10 minutes. But that's across, I don't know, 10 or 12 games now. And in and amongst all of that, there's been loads of shakiness. And I don't think I don't see how anyone can say he's made the defence more comfortable by having a presence of surety, because he just hasn't.
Do you think he's pushed them out?
Do I think? Well, sorry.
Do you think he's pushed them out? Do you think that they push out more when he's there?
Not necessarily. No.
Don't you?
No.
Okay.
No.
I think he pushed them out.
He doesn't command his box. I mean, he's a 6-yard goalkeeper.
I think it's about when we've got the ball and etc., and where they're taking the starting position and all that sort of stuff. I take the idea that, you know, I think he's more willing. He comes and does little bits of space. He offers as another pass. I mean, I'm saying all this in the context of not disagreeing that he should save the second, that he should hold the fourth.
And I think there's probably something in that, and, you know, starting positions and all this sort of new terminology that we use in the game. But there's some real basics in goalkeeping, and that's catching the ball and being able to tip a ball around a post, and just ultimately stopping the ball going in the net. And you can give me all the starting positions in the world. Those are the basics. I can have a good starting position. I can stand on the penalty spot and tell Lovren and Matip to push out. But when the ball comes to me, I'm going to drop it because I'm cracking.
It's doing my head in, Mike. I mean, I was laughing about it on Saturday with Bravo and saying, you know, all these things. Oh, he's brilliant at this. He's brilliant at this. He can't save the ball.
Yeah.
And you just... How we seem to want to evaluate goalkeepers now, it just seems to be warped to me. I just want Neville Southall.
Yeah.
Just give me Neville Southall. I won't even let me goalie wear footy boots, playing a pair of high tech.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you know, and just have a boss big fella who stops loads.
But,
and that's and I just get so confused at how people are trying to tell me this Bravo's a good goalie and he can't save anything. I don't get it. I think it's ridiculous.
I think the staunch defence of Karius is that because it got to such a situation with some people in their perception of Mignolet, they'll just accept anything. It's because he's not Mignolet. He's great. Well, the fact is that's not relevant. It's just not relevant, and it's at the point now where I think, and the pretext to this is that Mignolet was having a good season and we were looking good, and he, you know, I'm not saying that he completely changed his game, but he was trying to be more aggressive. He was coming off his line, he was punching things, and we were looking better. There was the anomaly, well, it wasn't an anomaly because it was the first game of the season at Arsenal where we conceded 3, but after that we're not routinely conceding goals or chances, and Mignolet was in goal then. And I'm not saying I want him back necessarily, I don't know, but this fella doesn't fill me with any confidence.
Thought Mignolet did well midweek, but on this, Bravo, Karius, that's Klopp and Guardiola.
Yeah,
they know what they're doing. And I'm more than happy for you to disagree with them. So why, again, I'll ask you, and I keep asking this, and I'm sorry, I know you had a heavy Sunday, but why, again, what do they think they're doing? Because they know what they're doing. They're not stupid men. They know a lot about football. They've won a lot of trophies.
I don't know. I don't know.
Is that why it wrecks your head? Because you just don't know.
I just actually fundamentally disagree with them. I think they've got it wrong. I think we'll look back in a few years and go, that was a bit mad, wasn't it? Remember that time when we decided goalkeepers didn't have to save anything? Someone will come along and change it. And then everyone like,
I mean, it's ongoing. Courtois is not that sort of keeper. De Gea is not that sort of keeper.
Yeah.
Petr Cech is very much not that sort of keeper. He very rarely bothers passing to an Arsenal player. Doesn't believe in it. But
just boot it. Play. I mean, my philosophy is I'm all for possession football and playing it round the back and keeping hold of the ball. But when it comes to a goalkeeper, just boot it.
I just think
win the second ball. I know it sounds old fashioned, but win your second ball. Then get down and play 30 yards from their goal.
No, I mean it's not. I don't think it's necessarily old fashioned. It's literally what Arsene Wenger's doing with Petr Cech.
It's playing the percentages.
It's literally what he's doing.
But you know, you see Petr Cech or you see Courtois or you see De Gea, and like Gibbo said before, there's games that you've watched where they're keeping their side in it with good saves.
Yeah.
They're solid, they're reliable, you know what you've got there. Okay, every goalkeeper at some point will make mistakes. And also as well, maybe we should give the lad Karius a little bit of a break in terms of just nerves, just being in a new environment, being in a new place. But at some point, he's got to start impressing. There's got to be games where he's pulling off saves, catching crosses.
To win matches.
And you come out of the 90 and you're going, played well there, him. And we've not really had that. I think he's been overpraised at times for really basic saves. I think, you know, he makes a good one yesterday, but all he's done is basically been off his line quick, and he's made quite a few saves like that. I think in the period we've seen him where he's off his line quick, that's one thing he looked good at to me.
That's fair enough.
But other times, like you say, real basic things, and I don't think there's no great sign of understanding and trust between goalie and defenders, and that was supposed to be one of the reasons you get him in. That you know, he's supposed to be an upgrade, isn't he, on Mignolet? And as it is, we've gone from a goalkeeper we didn't trust to another one we didn't trust, and that's a problem when you're trying to win the title.
Yeah, and you know, without wishing to get into the conversation about net spend and stuff, we had enough money in the bank from our transfer activity in the summer to be signing a more expensive goalkeeper. Now, I know that it doesn't guarantee that he's going to be good, but you've got a higher chance of success. And people said, "Oh, he's $4 million because we released the release clause, or whatever."
The manager's got the goalkeeper he wants.
We ain't the only club who could have done that, by the way. It wasn't a release clause just for Liverpool.
The manager's got the goalkeeper he wants.
Well, fair enough. I'm saying
that for the listener as much as I'm saying that for you. I'm saying that the manager, if the manager had wanted a different goalkeeper,
he could have signed. Well, maybe he could. Maybe there's some financial constraints on that. I don't know. I'm just speculating there. But what I would say, just in relation to the comments about Klopp and Guardiola, no one's arguing they're not really great managers, but all managers have blind spots. And I think, and I think goalkeepers most naturally can be a blind spot because it's a completely different art.
Yeah.
Your assessment of footballers can be fantastic, and you might not have a clue about goalkeeping. You might as well be talking about a rugby player or a cricketer because it's a completely different skill set.
But there's also the possibility, I'd say, Neil, that Klopp doesn't think Karius is doing very well. Like, he could have thought he was buying a better goalkeeper than he was. He could be, you know, he was in great form. Everyone keeps telling me about this prize that he won from fucking magazine, you know, best goalie in the world ever or something.
I've got a lot of sympathy with that.
So there could be that. So Klopp, you know, I'm sort of having this imaginary argument with Klopp, where Klopp could sit here, and if it was a private goal, do you know what, I thought he'd be better, and I don't really know what to do.
Well, no, it's worth remembering, for instance, that, you know, you remember United's goalkeepers, but you forget all the ones that Ferguson buys in the gap that he never really fancied, and that his attitude towards goalkeepers was you just keep buying the bastards until he got one, and he'd shift them on. And it could well be that we're sitting here next summer and we're getting linked to all sorts of keepers because he's decided he's jibbing this fella, and that's a perfectly valid way to address a position over time. The issue is that every now and again you find yourself, certainly when you're a side like us, and I've been for the last 10 years, in the midst of a real opportunity to win the league.
Well, this is the key thing here. And I was just going to say two things in relation to this. It's important because we're in with a chance, regardless of the fact that we're now 4 points behind. We're still very much in the mix, and we've played less home games, we've played difficult away games, all this kind of thing. Chelsea's still got to come to Anfield. There's a title to be won here. Now, he could be thinking, well, do you know what? What I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring Mignolet back in, and I'm going to buy someone else in January, because that's arch pragmatism. Because he's probably thinking, for the next 5 or 6 games, I can get more out of a rejuvenated Mignolet who gathers confidence from being reselected. I'd take the other fella out the firing line, or just drop him.
I'd be amazed if he did that.
I'd be surprised as well. And then I'm going to buy someone in January. But that's what I do. That's what I do, because both of them for me, have demonstrated they're not good enough. Now, you're not going to win the league with a crap goalkeeper.
I think the Liverpool manager sits here, you're saying that, and he says to you, I'm loyal to my players. It's all part of a process. I believe I coach them and make them better. That's what I do. And that, therefore, I'm not going to give up on a lad who's playing in goal after 10 games. And I think he can say that to you, and he can look you in the eye, and he could even say to you...
And I don't understand his thought process.
And he could say, do you remember Grobbelaar's first 10 games, Mike?
Yeah, I do remember them. Yeah.
They were shite, weren't they?
They were, but Grobbelaar did that all the way through his career. It never changed. He'd always drop one. I mean, but the thing about Grobbelaar, though, was that his mistakes were mitigated by his style, which he was coming to take pressure off his defence. This fella's not doing that. I don't want to be hugely critical of him, but I just don't fancy...
You just fucked him off in January.
I just don't think he's good enough.
Yeah.
I just don't think he's good enough. And if we're going to win the league, we need someone better in goal. And it might not be Simon Mignolet. It probably isn't Simon Mignolet. So what do? You've got an opportunity in 3 or 4 weeks' time to go out and address that situation. Now, I'm not... Obviously, whoever's available at that time of year, there's all that. But for me, if we're doing our best to win this league, we need to go out and buy a new goalkeeper.
I'd be amazed if he did that.
So would I. But if I was in charge, that's what I'd be doing.
All right, then. I think we broadly speaking covered everything, really. Lucas struggled, Gareth, I think it's fair to say. When the pressure came on, I did wonder if there was an argument to actually whack Clavan on there and push Lucas forward, push Henderson forward and have more energy. But again, in the same way that the manager... Someone said to me yesterday, you know what he could have done yesterday? He could have started Moreno at left back and put Milner in midfield and dropped someone. Yeah, the manager's gone.
Do you want to change?
But also, I think how many changes you want to make, but also his attitude towards Milner's my left back, he's going to play left back. Lucas this season is playing, broadly speaking, with the odd exception, he's playing centre half, and he's going to be a centre half. And I think that's a management. He's dealing with these lads across the course of 9 months. He's not just dealing with them in this 120 minutes. We want the best out of that 20 minutes. He's thinking about all this. But, I think that across the course of the 90 minutes yesterday, Lucas wasn't great.
No, I don't think he was.
He was poor, in fact.
I don't think he was. I think he struggled. I think he struggled just with nature, that he's not 6'4", 6'5", like, Matip is. He struggled in that. I think when Eds were gone, Iz was one of them. And his style is that he likes to come up high and try and win it, because he's traditionally played in midfield. I mean, it's just worth remembering he's not a centre half. And you say Klopp's putting him there and using him there. I don't know. I mean, I kind of think, well, what's the point in Clavan? Like, what's he here for? If in those games he's not playing. Did he buy him as fourth choice? Or
I think he did, yeah.
Did he see something where... Because he had a couple of crap games.
Maybe he's seen him as... Maybe he did originally see him as third choice, but he thinks Lucas has got ahead of him in the pecking order from performances and things he's seen.
Lucas has been good at centre-half, generally speaking, but he had a really poor game yesterday. And it was his style coming in front of the centre-half was sort of all wrong for the way that game was going, because they had pace and momentum in that direction. And I don't know, he looked a bit of a shambles, but he wasn't playing well from the off. First half, he gave it away sloppily a couple of times, and I just think he had a poor game. But I can see why he's been elevated above Clavan, because Clavan made some terrible mistakes at Burnley in the first game, and I went off him after that because I thought there's a limit to how good he is, and he cost next to nothing. Lucas is a really good footballer, I think he is a good centre half, but. I mean, Robbo's right to point out he's only really been playing there since sort of January, and that was a massive stopgap idea at the time. The fact that he's done well there because he reads the game well, I think certain games suit him, but when it really comes down to a physical battle, as good as he is in the air.
This is another one though, Mike, isn't it? Where it's like I think you've got to sort of bring it down a little bit and say it's just one game. We were unbeaten in 15 before Bournemouth. But at the same time, there's perhaps an argument now around centre-half where you're like, OK, so Sakho's bombed, he's gone. That's not even a debate. People are having the debate anyway because that's what they do. But it's gone. He said he's gone. He's broke the rules. He's not coming back. So forget about him. And then there's Joe Gomez is on his way. Well, I really rate Joe Gomez myself. But at what point you say, well, hang on. He's not here. He's not available again.
He's never played centre-half for Liverpool.
And there's that. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I thought one of the biggest factors yesterday as well was it was almost a perfect storm of there was too many things. There was Matip missing. There was Coutinho missing. Coutinho and Firmino link well. Firmino and Origi didn't link well. Do you know what I mean?
Firmino looked half fit as well, by the way.
Look fit.
So there was a load of circumstances, and then blood up the way the game goes with Bourne, blah 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 blah. All that comes together.
Perfect storm, wasn't it? He was, yeah.
To result in us getting B40, but I think it is really interesting now what Liverpool do in January and what Klopp does in January, I think, because like you're saying, we've created a situation now where we are in the league where we've got a real good chance of winning it. So do we just go, hang on, okay, we're just going to stick to our guns. We develop players. We don't go and pay big for a player. We're not going to bring someone in who could really push us on. We're going to bring in similar signings to what we've been making, if you know what I mean. So
yeah.
I think that's interesting because you could just go out and go, do you know what? This is the best chance we've had for years. Let's go and get a keeper. Let's go and get a centre-half.
And just because you do that doesn't mean that all of a sudden you're saying, well, we don't want to develop our players. We don't want, someone like Lovren or Henderson or whoever it is to stop improving under Klopp's coaching and his ability to bring the best out in players, which isn't open to question. We're not going to stop doing any of that, and we're not going to stop developing our young players and giving Woodburn and Najaria the chance to play occasionally. We're not going to stop doing any of that. If they're good enough, they'll get in the team on merit. But why can't we just start? What we need to do is start acting like other sides who put the money where their mouth is when they've got a chance of winning titles. If we don't do that, you end up potentially another 2009, another 2014. When it comes to the last 3-4 games of the season, like yesterday, where you're 3 or 4 players short and you just haven't got enough quality to compensate, and that would be a criminal.
Sturridge is another one as well.
Criminal neglect, it would be.
Sturridge missing is another one to add to the perfect.
Yeah, and it looks bad at the moment because we've got 4 or 5 players out. Everyone understands it, but that's the nature of the league. Now, if you look at Chelsea on Saturday, they've got Willian and Oscar on the bench. Now, I'm sure they've got the odd injury here or there, but they still look strong on the bench. We've got our 3 kids on the bench. And as I say, I just think it's too important not to address it in some way. And if that means 3 players, new goalkeeper, new centre half, then. And someone else, I don't know, someone a bit of pace. Why not? Why not try?
It'd be interesting to see what he does in January. I'm not sure we will get anyone in, but it'd be interesting to see what he does. I guess it depends on how much faith he's got in kind of what's there. But it just was worrying.
And he's losing Mane as well for 6 weeks potentially.
Yeah. I mean that's worth a chat really about how we didn't look as good when Mane went off, even though he wasn't playing that well. Yeah, there's no one else who does kind of what he does,
but he stretches things, and he's one of the ones that's got a bit of pace.
Yeah, and so I think when Mane went off, they were like, oh yeah, don't have to worry. That's one less thing to worry about. Almost forward, it allowed them to attack more. I thought anyway. That's what it kind of looked like to me. And the concern with the Mane situation is not really. That he's going. It's more that there's no one else who can come in and do a similar thing. Maybe Ojo's the man. I don't know. He played for the under-23s at the weekend. So he's back in that regard. But that was a bit of a worry to me there. How we suddenly looked a bit kind of one-paced really after Mane went off.
The context now, though, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure you might have just been about to say that. Sorry, Neil. Is that how we react now? So we've got West Ham at the weekend. We've got West Ham at the weekend. We've got Middlesbrough away. We've got Everton away. If we get 9 points there, then the doom and gloom's gone. And that's the important thing now. That
just Liverpool, not giving ourselves a ton of room for manoeuvre between now and Man City.
We haven't,
because it doesn't look like Chelsea are going to stop to any great degree. We could really have done with City turning them over, or at least a point at the weekend. It doesn't. It does suddenly look.
I think also you've got to put into this conversation about our next 3 games, how we feel. And it's all very well saying, we're going to bounce back and we're going to take 9 out of 9. But Middlesbrough and Everton away are 2 tough away games. Yeah. They really are. And to be perfectly honest, if Liverpool get 7 points in the next 9, I'll be made up. And that might mean a bigger gap on Chelsea, but it's about sticking in there now. Chelsea have got relatively winnable games coming up in the next 5, but they don't necessarily win all of them.
Well, we've had winnable. Bournemouth's meant to be a winnable game.
Exactly. That's the nature of the league. But as I say, I'd be more concerned that Liverpool don't get even 7 out of 9, because I think the impact of something like yesterday can be, unless you really, I think definitely the mentality is to approach it like we did after Burnley, and you say, right, what we do now is we do the same thing. But what we've done since Burnley has quite frankly been fantastic up until yesterday, putting win after win and not getting beat. It's easier said than done to just react like that and then put another run together. And it's about just getting heads together. And I just think on that transfer front again, I think as much as anything, just a fresh face. It's something Liverpool teams did in the past, was just introduce a fresh face at a key point of the season. Doesn't hurt.
Okay then, thank you very much to Mike and to John. Me and Gareth are now going to go away and speak to... There's one thing I want to ask you. There's one thing I want to ask you actually in the context of the transfers. I spoke to a friend of mine, Paul Taylor, this week, and he says this is something they always say to each other in the pub. He said you should think about doing it on a show, and so I'm going to ask you, which Bournemouth player would you add to the Liverpool squad
Fraser.
You're not allowed to say Fraser.
That was the easy one, wasn't it? I've no idea. I think they had a good day, Bournemouth, but I don't think there's anyone in that team particularly that maybe the goalkeeper, Boruc, the Pope's goalie.
He nearly carried it in from a corner, Mike.
I'm bit. Yeah,
I still think that went in. I know.
margins.
I've seen the pictures and I've seen the stills, but I still think it went in.
Who would you have from there?
None of them. I'm sorry. I know it's not much fun. I'm not really playing the game, but
You're not playing the game,
I
no?
don't want any of them.
Okay, Gareth.
Yeah, I was going to say what John said. I haven't watched loads and loads of Bournemouth, but I think they had a good day yesterday. I don't think any of their players that I can think of.
I think their left back's quite a good player, isn't he?
Well, Smith who started there, but
yeah.
he's normally a right back, and I think he's a really good player.
Yeah.
Whenever I've seen him, and I also like Arter. I think Arter's a good centre midfielder.
I think there's a couple of them. They would, it's a semi-serious question, isn't it? It's very unlikely they would be going to Bournemouth to be picking up players, but yeah. Anyway.
Okay,
Cook after that finish. Flash him up front.
Anyway, thank you very much to Mike and to John. Me and Gareth are going to disappear now. We're going to talk to Neil Wilby about Bettison's latest book. A few weeks back, there was the release of Norman Bettison's book, which is called Hillsborough Untold Story, and there was kerfuffle around that and press. And at the Anfield Wrap, we sort of decided we didn't want to have anything to do with that. We wanted to sort of give it a little bit of time and a little bit of space. And in the meantime, there was a fantastic blog written by Neil Wilby, who dismantled the untold story of Norman Bettison. So we wanted to put him on the phone on this free show so that you could listen to Neil, hopefully read his blog piece, which we'll put out there for you to be able to read. We're made up, he's agreed to join us. And Neil, before we even get into the text of the Bettison book, and as I say, if anyone doesn't feel comfortable listening to this, we completely understand, because one of the issues, really, Neil, isn't it, is how it's inappropriate, really, that the book's even being written and published, given what's still ongoing.
Yes, I think so. I think both in its concept and its timing, it was ill-judged. It's not unlawful. It's not on bail. There's been no charge. But I think on his own self-admission that he is attempting to influence CPS really undermines him as far as it's possible to go.
It's... I mean, you've read it. Gareth's read it. You're both here with me. I've read excerpts from it that Gareth sent me, and I've read your blog piece, and we've had conversations about it in the office. I mean, let's be clear, we're not recommending people buy it, but how disingenuous is part of the book as far as you're concerned, Neil?
Well, it's insincere. I think in its motive, and in fact, it's hypocritical. There's a number of what have been exposed as fraudulent claims, almost to the point of mendacity. And I've only just read it in actual fact. I'm in contact regularly with Joe Thomas at the Echo. I think he's a grand lad and a really good reporter. And he's put out a very well-crafted piece only last week on the 2nd of December. It's had very few shares on the Echo website. But Joe's come up with 7 crossheads, and there's only one where there's a minor overlap with the flaws that I've been able to identify. So there's a lot that's wrong with the book, that's for sure.
It seems very selective, doesn't it, Neil? I think that's what came across to me. In that, you call a book the sort of the untold story, and that makes out wrongly, in my opinion, that you're telling something that people don't already know. What it seems to be is a text that's just basically Bettison putting out there why he's a good person and why he has been wronged about Hillsborough. I mean, that's what really gets to me and really winds me up about it, is that this whole project by him is basically him saying he is some sort of victim in all this.
And I think that's the source of the deep offence that he's caused to principally families, survivors, the Vanguard campaigners, and many, in fact, the overwhelming people of Liverpool and in the wider areas of the country. I live here in West Yorkshire, and it's been the topic on on the lips of many. He was the chief constable here. He was not a particularly popular man, and I think the choice of title was unfortunate. He's not Hillsborough Untold at all. There are very few, and only to the people with a specialist interest. My interest is investigative journalism. I was looking for the golden nuggets of evidence that might help me fit some pieces of an unfinished jigsaw. It just wasn't there.
You've been challenging police forces, and especially around North, South and West Yorkshire and Greater Manchester for many years now, Neil, and a lot of this, to me, I'll just quote something from your blog, where you for instance, you say it should also be borne in mind that in his evidence to the inquest at Warrington, Bettison either answered "I don't recall" or "no" to questions along the line of "Do you recollect or remember?" over 20 times. So therefore, is the reader of this book expected to accept these untold revelations were either withheld from his evidence, or has he had some sort of restoration to the left side of his brain in the ensuing few months, is what you've said. And you've been investigating and being on top of miscarriages of justice from those police forces that I've just mentioned, amongst others, for many years. And this sort of a project like this isn't the way in which it's written, the way in which he's gone at it. It isn't unfamiliar to what you see from police forces who are trying to keep people away from an untold story.
Yeah, I think that's a fair summary, and. The most surprising element to me is here's a man, very talented, highly educated, erudite, intelligent, sat at home, really doing nothing apart from brooding and moping. And it's the lack of accuracy. If you've been a police officer for all those years and you've led 2 out of the top 5 police forces in the country, you would have expected a different approach, a much more, for want of a better word, an academic or evidential approach. And, that is absent. There's just mistake after mistake, and I'm being kind by saying mistake. It's just littered with error, falsehood, mistake, wherever you want to place those on the spectrum. And that, again, is another really disappointing aspect to the book. I've had, reservations now for over 4 years as to, the actual substance of the account that later became his statement, as to where, we know he was in seat NN28, and really beyond that, I'm not so sure that anything in that statement is actually supported by evidence that would make it fact. There is now a school of thought, which I'm now pursuing, and I'm going to pursue with the IPCC, that he didn't actually leave the ground by the rear of the Leppings Lane end of the ground, and that his car wasn't parked on Claywills Lane. Because the events that he described in that journey from that seat in the South Stand to exiting the ground, there's no collateral evidence that supports it. From arriving shortly from leaving his seat to what he described as a deceased body and an injured man, 3 police officers and a St John's ambulance man. But then routing around to his brief contact allegedly with Chief Inspector Purdy, and then organising a serial near the gates to the inner enclosure to the Leppings Lane end of the ground. It doesn't make sense to me, because there's no other officer ever refers to this person, and also there are certain inaccuracies there that would have been challenged not just by me, and this is going to form the substance of a complaint. I can't be the complainant because I have no standing as a complainant, but I have someone that I work with very closely that is and has that standing, and that complaint will be going in at the turn of the year.
Do you think, Neil, that both Norman Bettison and the people behind the publishing of this book, do you think they've underestimated how detailed the knowledge out there is of what happened at Hillsborough now? Because there's been a huge mood change nationally in how that event is now perceived. We've obviously had the independent panel report followed by the inquest, but also it feels to me like that both of them, publisher and writer in this, have underestimated the knowledge out there. That it seems almost arrogant to me that they think they can put this version out and people will believe it, because all this, there's public information there which contradicts what's in the book. People can simply do an internet search, not least them find your blog, Neil, but also, you know, stuff that's freely available, that's been put out because of the independent panel report, because of how the likes of the Echo recorded what happened in the inquest as well. So, you know, it feels a strange decision both to write it and to publish it when that wealth of information exists.
I agree entirely. I think the motive was one of self-redemption or rehabilitation, because what comes out in the book to me is that he is alone, he's isolated because of, although he's not no longer a police officer, he's in effect under criminal investigation. So, he's not able to contact former police colleagues. I think he feels sore about being excluded from social events or policing events. And of course, as a former chief constable, he would have had a very generously rewarded and socially fulfilling and professionally fulfilling after career. That's all been denied to him now. But you've hit the nail on the head. Both Bettison and the publisher have massively underrated the reaction that it was going to create. And there are better investigators than me. There's a group, and they prefer anonymity. I think you know who they are, and I know who they are. There is a group that has done the most phenomenal work, have led the IPCC in many areas of the investigation, and continue to do that great work. And some of the product of that is seen on social media. Some of the product is seen in the Echo or in a wider sense in the national media. And we're working largely from open source material. We haven't got the archive that the IPCC have got. If we were let loose on that, the sky would be the limit.
On all this, then, there's two parts to sort of what I'm going to ask you next. It is about sort of Bettison throwing stuff into the public domain. What you say there, that he now sort of feels like he's on the outside of the police, and as part of that, the conduct of the QCs representing the police in the inquest just gone. I mean, I personally don't think, and I don't know what you think, but enough's been made of that conduct. It doesn't get a mention from Bettison in his book, according to both you and Gareth. But that there was the way in which the forces are now trying to look after themselves is exceptionally aggressive. And do you think this is either part of this, or do you think this is separate to it, and instead Bettison trying to look after himself?
I think that there's possibly two parts to the answer to that question. And Bettison is wanting to salve himself, in the eyes of his family principally. The book is dedicated, for better or for worse, I think it's for worse, to his two granddaughters, Olivia and Freya. They're going to have to live with this. If this book is not withdrawn and pulped, and I still hope that it may well be, their name is going to be attached to this as they grow up. That's legacy for him to have left. As far as the motive for the rest of it, or him enjoining, criticism at the inquest, I didn't sense that at all. But what I think the book does try to do is to paint the picture that he's done all his career of, all police are wonderful and we do a difficult, dangerous job. That style of narrative, and also almost to ingratiate himself, back within policing circles, because I think he's seen as largely a pariah at the moment. But the absence of criticism, particularly of John Beggs, and of course he mentions Beggs late in the book, in a different context entirely. Beggs was retained by the West Yorkshire Police Authority to find a way to remove Bettison from office. So there was an opportunity there to criticise Beggs, and I think most of the opprobrium would be directed at John Beggs, some of it at Fiona Barton, some of it at the Police Federation team, but at the end of the day, it was the Police Federation legal team that drew out the fatal admission from David Duckenfield, that he was negligent and that he wasn't a capable match commander. So, but the absence of criticism of the line that was run at the inquest, is telling.
The other thing as well... Go on, Gareth.
I was just going to say that, I mean, another line that jumped out to me as well is that I think there's an awful underlying tone to this Bettison book as well, that he's repeating some of the lies that have taken 27 years to stamp down, really. I mean, he puts in there sort of, there's this huge explanation about passing on of tickets and how there's a big demand to get to Liverpool matches, and it's almost repeating,
subliminal smears.
Yeah, he doesn't go into detail and say it's the fans' fault, but those themes underline some of the stuff he talks about in the book, and that again. He's trying to drag reputations through the mud, it feels like, and for the benefit of himself.
Yes, I think that's right. I think they've been described as subliminal smears, and I think that's what they are. It's almost as though, he replants the idea in the head. And going back to his statement, if he didn't take that western route out of the ground, he took a southern route out of the ground, back out onto Middlewood Road and down to Hamilton, either to the ground or from the ground, he wouldn't have passed any ticket touts, he wouldn't have passed any drinking fans. So, we have that question mark returning. But to me, it made it coming so close after the inquest finding, the families and the survivors are looking to find some sort of peace now, and I think to bring all that up again, albeit he's qualified that by saying, well, I brought it up just to explain that, they were not factors in the findings of the Taylor inquiry or the second inquest, but it made me and many other people I've spoken to extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, that's clearly distressed people that didn't need any more distress. The families that have fought all these years to get where they are now. I mean, what is encouraging, though, and it's weird almost to call it a positive, but I think it is a positive to say what has been good for me out of this Bettison book is the national media reaction to it. For instance, Bettison, I think, behind the scenes must be delighted that he gets the platform of Newsnight to talk about his book, and yet then he's taken down on Newsnight in front of a national audience, and
from the very start,
from moment one. And I think if you look at his face and his demeanour and the way he spoke in that interview, that is not what he expected.
No, funny enough, I've been on the Anfield Wrap just to revisit my blog, and I've actually played the full 10 minutes of the interview this morning. And Evan Davis puts him on the back foot from minute one, and he is a man that wears his feelings on his face and his sleeve, and he never really recovered from that, and that's to Evan's credit. And he kept him firmly planted on the back foot throughout that interview. To be perfectly truthful, that's the only interview I've seen, because I didn't really want to. I didn't really want to sort of join in the publicity stunt, because that's what it's amount to. And he's selling the book, he's entitled to do the rounds of the media, but never in his imagination, either his or the publishers, could they have contemplated getting the reaction that they did, and to be slaughtered, in every national press outlet that I've read. Must have been a very, very uncomfortable feeling for him over the few days. And I'll go back to the point then, about Olivia and Freya, his stepdaughter, his wife. How uncomfortable has all this made his family? So, the project has completely backfired. And I just hold no sympathy at all. I don't hold any venom. I just wish he'd not have written the book. He should have waited for the IPCC investigation to conclude and for the CPS to decide whether there are charges, and then there might have been an opportunity to come out and say something, but not in the style and the content of the book as it's been presented. I think it's been, I think it's been a disaster.
Okay, huge thank you to Neil Wilby there for coming on the Anfield Wrap this week and talking to us about this. We will push that piece that he's written through all of our channels across the next 24, 48 hours after you're listening to this. If you're listening to it on Monday / Tuesday, you should be able to see it somewhere there quite easily. It's very much worth reading. It's a long piece, but it's very, very thorough indeed. A very forensic going over of what's been written there by Norman Bettison. Huge thank you to Neil, everyone else who's contributed to this week's show. That's the Anfield Wrap.